Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. We will formally inaugurate the conference, the second edition of the HDSI International Conference right now. And for that, I would like to invite our distinguished guests to the stage. I would like to invite Professor Vijay Raghavan, former Secretary of Department of Biotechnology and former Principal Scientific Advisor to the Prime Minister of India. Welcome, sir. Now I would like to invite Professor Pratima Murthy, the Director of NIMHANS. Dr. Rajani Partha Sarthi, Deputy Director of Mental Health, Department of Health and Family Welfare, Government of Karnataka. Professor P.S. Mathuranath, Head of Department of Neurology, NIMHANS. Professor Suvarna Aladi, Department of Neurology in NIMHANS. And Professor Pramod Pal from the Department of Neurology, NIMHANS. And finally, Professor Sanjeev Jain, founding member of HDSI and Emeritus Professor of Psychiatry at NIMHANS. We're honored to have you all here with us today. Before the lamp lighting ceremony, I would like to invite Aishwarya for a short performance.
सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणी विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा.
I would now like to invite the guests for the lamp lighting ceremony. I also invite Dr. Kaushik to join us on the stage.
दीपलागला देवापाशी उजड पडला तुळशी पाशी मंगळमणी मम सौभाग्याचा देवा माझ्या मांगल्याचा उद्दंडलोबो आयुधन्यासी तेज कुंकुम चढ़ते दीप ज्योति नमस्तुते.
Thank you, everyone. To begin with this, I would like to invite Mr. Venkateshwara Rao Kaushik, Chairman of HDSI, to deliver the opening remarks.
Yeah, respected dignitaries, esteemed colleagues, distinguished guests, dear patients, caregivers. Hello. Yeah. Welcome to this event. It is it gives me a great immense pleasure to deep pride to welcome you all for a second edition of the Huntington Disease Society of, Conference being held at NIMHANS. On behalf of Huntington Disease Society, I extend warm welcome to all and gather here today from India and across the world. This year's theme is Advancing the Science and Care, Unified Strategies for Huntington Disease. We thought we'll have an interesting session both towards science as well as the patient, so that it creates the interest both people, that category people. That's what is the intention of this. And we had in 2019 first conference before forming the Huntington Society in NIMHANS itself. And this is the second edition what we have been taking up. And we are on to have for a esteemed distinguished scientist from the healthcare, including Dr. Vijay Raghavan, former Principal Secretary, Advisor to Government of India, and Dr. Pratima Murthy, Director NIMHANS, Suvarna Alladi, and Head of the Neurology Department, and Jagdish Tirthalli. I think he is not there, I think he'll be joining. And our Movement Disorders President, as well as the scientist from the Pramod Pal, and as well as NIMHANS professors Vishwanath, Biju Vishwanath, Meera Purushottam, and others. So Srini and Bhavna, our own team, we have been, this is all effort of the team effort, where somebody's been visible inside, somebody's been backside working together and trying to make it this happen today. Over the next 2 days, we'll have a hear from some of the brightest scientific minds, learn from the clinicians who are pioneering the new approaches to diagnose and care. Most importantly, listen to the voice of our patients, caregivers, who lived the experience, inspire the guide us. This conference is not just about the sharing knowledge. It is about the building bridges between the science and humanity, between the laboratory and the living person. That's what intention. Huntington disease is rare, but the challenge is to bring a profound. Together through unified strategies, we can move closer to the further, and where the no family feels alone, where care is accessible to holistic, and where research paves way towards the effective therapies and eventually cure. That's what is the aim of this society. I take this opportunity to thank our collaborators, like a health department from the Karnataka government, NIMHANS, Audi, and Movement Disorder Society, Huntington Disease Society Association, Huntington Youth Organization, Huntington Disease Society of America, for standing with us in this mission. I also extend the gratitude to our sponsors, partners, even every volunteers who have worked relentlessly to make it conference a reality. Finally, our patients, caregivers who are at heart for the things to do. Your courage is our inspiration, and your stories remind us why this work matters. With these words, I once again welcome you all. I look forward these today meaningful dialogue, collaboration, and hope. Together, let us make one more step forward in our journey toward the brighter future for the Huntington community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would now like to invite Professor Pratima Murthy to address the gathering.
Good morning, everyone. At the outset, it's very gratifying to be here at this particular conference on Huntington's disease and looking at advancing the science as well as care. And I think to have it in NIMHANS is particularly symbolic and important, because I guess that's what we do day in, day out. We look at trying to advance science so that eventually it can lead to better outcomes for patients. It's also very good that we have such a diverse group of people present in the audience, right from, the users of services, people who've had the experience of living with Huntington's, their family members, as well as clinicians who care for patients who come with Huntington's disease, people who are doing research in the area. So, and of course, to also have the state as a partner, and Dr. Rajani represents that. I think this is all very important because at the end of the day, we are looking, of course, we would be looking at cures, but we know sometimes that cures are still something which is aspirational. At this point in time, we have a huge responsibility of care. And to that end, at NIMHANS, my colleagues, I can see that 3 of the very senior colleagues in neurology are present on the dais today, as are other faculty and staff of NIMHANS. So we've been trying very hard to actually make sure that Huntington's as well as other rare neurological disorders are also recognized as rare disorders and given the kind of incentives that are being offered for other rare diseases in the country. We have forwarded, I think this has been going on for several years now. My colleague, Professor Sanjeev Jain, and his team have been involved with providing care for many years now as well. But I think in terms of making this proposal to take it forward is something that we have done very seriously. We're still in discussions with them, and we hope that at some time many of the chronic neurological disorders will come under the ambit of the rare diseases so that we can actually transfer these benefits to families, to patients and their families. The second thing, of course, is the discussion with the Karnataka government, and I do know that the Commissioner of Health has taken this up very seriously, as had the previous commissioner, and is trying to also work with medical education to set up care in an easier environment so that people don't have to travel long distances and wait in long queues to obtain care, and to see what other facilities can be provided. In some ways, Dr. Vijay Raghavan, I think in your capacity earlier, in several capacities earlier, not just as scientist, as researcher, but the principal advisor, in terms of science, I think a lot has been done in trying to advance the research in this area. But I guess it's only when there is a confluence of scientists, researchers, clinicians, users, and carers will it go forward. And in that context, I really wanted to congratulate, I'm just going to name Mr. Kaushik and Bhavna because they are the front faces for us. But I'm sure every one of you, I can recognize many of you in the audience who have struggled so hard to put this together. And I do know that the personal experiences of living with a disorder finally defines what it actually means. And I do know that we have almost a memoir of a person who has gone through the experience of juvenile Huntington's disease, actually sharing some of his experiences. And I know Dr. Sanjeev has also shared the fact that, the brain and the mind really are inseparable. And, I think we need to look at all of these disorders, not just from the view of the scientific vantage, but what it means to have to go through it, and how do we empathize, be compassionate, and support people and their families to deal with conditions like this. I'm sure the deliberations that are going to be held as part of this conference are going to be extremely meaningful, and I hope that it paves the way not just for better clinical care, but also for more research in this area. I hope you have a wonderful and educative day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I would now like to request Professor Vijay Raghavan to address the gathering.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. I'm a bit overwhelmed to be here today because it's really moving to see how clinicians, caregivers, patients, researchers come together to address a very, very important problem. And this really is the way forward for us to get together and discuss, but also have concerted plans of action ranging from, as Pratima pointed out, from caregiving to research to treatment and cures. It might be good in this context to see what the complexities of inherited diseases are how we came to understand them, and how in general we are looking at ways to treat them. And some understanding of the general timelines of these are important, because while those timelines are long, today this pace of change is so much that it requires us to see how we can compress them hugely going forward, and indeed that's feasible. Now, the understanding of disorders as inherited came about, early 20th century, when discovered in the early 20th century, when Mendel's laws were discovered. That is, characters could be inherited. Typically, those studies showed that there were some traits which were inherited in a simple manner. But it did not address at that time many traits which are inherited in a very complex manner. So hold that for a second. Traits can be inherited, and the formalism of genetics can allow you to say whether these are caused by single genes or multiple genes and how they go from generation to generation. You don't have to look inside the organism to know what's happening. At least at that time you didn't. There's another major change, which was Darwin's expounding of the theory of evolution. And that fundamentally to us what it means is that all life on earth is related, it has a common origin, and it has a shared chemistry. That means understanding one cell in one context can be incredibly important in understanding another organism, another cell in another context, because of the shared chemistry, and that shared chemistry is connected in evolution through the thread of DNA. So in other words, these two major revolutions allowed us to chart out how we inherit traits from our parents, from our grandparents, and so on. And then the ability to study this in any organism allowed us to see what the cellular basis of this was. That ability to study also was transformed both by genetics and by genetic engineering, and therefore we could not only study these traits in chicken, mouse, flies, worms, and so on and so forth, in cell lines as you heard this morning, but you could also have the ability to remove genes and put them back in different contexts and see what happens. So all this is pretty incredible, and this took over 150 years to happen. Now, when we come to treatment and cures, that too has changed dramatically. The earliest approaches to treatment and cures were one of exploratory approaches in the jungle, to take plants, to take mud, search for organisms, search for chemicals, which could then treat different kinds of phenotypes, different kinds of diseases, infectious diseases or lifestyle diseases. And because there was so little work done earlier, these early exploratory ones resulted in winning many lotteries, even though few tickets were bought. But soon all the low-hanging prizes were taken, and more focused, target-driven approaches to discovery of treatment needed to come about. That came about at a very high level in the mid to late 20th century by the ability to design drugs, to look at them in the computer and design them, test them out in cells, test them out in model organisms, and then do trials. This, though laborious, proved to be very valuable for many, many kinds of diseases. And there too, came in another factor which is relevant to all of us. That is, this required a huge amount of investment and trials, and therefore market forces became critically important in deciding what diseases to focus on and what diseases were not market tenable. This then linked up later on with our ability, as the human genome was sequenced, other genomes were sequenced, and our understanding of inherited diseases became better, that we could then identify the genetic causes of many rare diseases, and not only just say that they were inherited in a certain manner, but actually look at the molecular causes. And that was a major advancement in our understanding. But because of these market forces being dominant, not all of them went into explorations for treatment and cures. Now, there's one more parameter before I come to treatment and cures, which is important in genetic diseases, and that is, while there are many kinds, single genes, multiple genes, and so on and so forth, even the so-called simplest ones have a huge variation in presentation and phenotype. Why is that? Why is it that people with a specific mutation, a specific allele in sickle cell, for example, have different kinds of presentations depending on which populations they are from or which families they are from? And that's because of the presence of what are called modifier genes, other genes which can modify the effect of this one and either enhance or diminish its effect. So that's an important point. Now keep all this in mind and ask where we are today in terms of speed of attempt at treatments and cures. What has happened in the last 2 decades is an incredible pace in charting out gene expression in different cell types, behavior in different contexts, behavior and gene expression and phenotypes in different genetic backgrounds. So in other words, our understanding of the description of what is happening has become extraordinarily high. That combined with methods both in drug screening, and drug screening is useful because, as I said, if there are genetic modifiers which can reduce the penetrance of a particular mutation, there should also be drugs and lifestyle changes which can reduce the effect of a mutation. So those can be done in a much more organized way on a different scale. Similarly, while the diagnosis is now relatively easy, the treatments from a genetic approach for treating these diseases have also become more and more accessible. They're expensive still, but their costs will come down. Let me give you one example of the timeline it took in a certain case. If you look at thalassemia and sickle cell disease, they are because of defects in the globin gene. Several decades and I would say thousands of PhD students and postdoctoral researchers showed that there's a fetal hemoglobin gene whose expression is suppressed in the adult. And if one could magically turn on the expression of that gene in the adult, you would be able to treat sickle cell disease and thalassemia. Now that was an interesting idea. That also resulted in the mapping of the regulatory region of the fetal hemoglobin gene so that we knew which are the parts which were involved in its expression and its suppression in the adult. A large-scale screen for gene expression identified a repressor which represses the fetal hemoglobin gene in the adult, and this happened only a few years ago. And therefore, genetic engineering tools which could remove this repressor resulted in the expression of the fetal gene in the adult, treating sickle cell disease caused by a defect in the adult global gene and thalassemia, which is a defect in the gene expression of adult genes. Right? So here is a huge long haul of fundamental research in multiple model organisms and applied research which resulted in the treatment for one, or in this case, 2 diseases. Is it possible to accelerate this? Because when we go and say we would like Huntington's to be explored substantially, someone else goes with some other disease, like say muscular dystrophy, a third group goes with some other disease. Is it possible to scale up? That scaling up, my contention would be, is feasible now. It was not feasible some time ago because many of the fundamental horizontals required for a common approach are there, and therefore those are common, and the specific ones are complicated, they are expensive, they're difficult, but they're feasible through collaboration, and they're increasingly feasible by breaking down the costs in an environment such as India. If there's one thing India is good at, it's at scaling and frugality. The challenge here is to scale, have frugal science with excellence at the cutting edge. That unusually, it is feasible in Bangalore. You have NIMHANS here, you have the Jawaharlal Nehru Center, the National Center for Biological Sciences, the Indian Institute of Science, the Center for Brain Research over there, and so on. All these institutions are fantastic, and with the exception of NIMHANS, which is closely connected to people, all the other institutions are essentially a short walk from India. They are not connected with India sufficiently. Therefore, a partnership which breaks their isolation, brings your connection here at NIMHANS, makes it substantial with cutting edge science, is feasible. That's happening in, for example, in collaborations on cancer therapies. IIT Bombay and Tata Memorial Center are collaborating on new approaches to cancer therapies. And so new approaches to drug discovery and to treatment for Huntington's are also feasible. The rest of the world might take it up or not, or to different extents. So we have the strength and the ability to take it up, and we should do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I would now like to invite Professor Rajni Parthasarathi to address us.
Good morning, everybody. Anyway, she made me professor. I'm not a professor. I'm a psychiatrist by profession. Dignitaries on the dais and off the dais. So happy to be part of this, august gathering. I would be sharing few practical discussions what we have had with the HDSI team and NIMHANS team. HDSI team, I'm always, my heartbeat little bit goes up whenever I see Kaushik sir. So we have had many rounds of discussions, actually practically how to help people with HD. So many in the discussions, thanks to our Honorable Health Minister, Principal Secretary, Commissioner. So we have had few rounds of discussion where the team members like Bhavna, Kaushik and Mr. Singh, all of them, they have requested for a multidisciplinary care center where a holistic care can be given in under one roof instead of they going to different places. That is one of the requests that they have put forth in front of the government. And the DBS and various, starting from very practical equipments like different kinds of beds, and then wheelchairs. So those practical, difficulties what the patients with Huntington's disease are facing. So few steps we have moved forward. They had also asked for a task force to be formed. So many things we can tick now. We have sent request letters to Department of Medical Education, Department of Empowerment of Disabled, so that they can look into the proposal. And for example, in Victoria Hospital, to start with, they can start a multidisciplinary care center. So these are the work in progress which is happening at the government level. And also happy to share that this coming Monday, 25th, the first meeting of the task force which has been formed to discuss about the action plan that has to be done for dementia and other Huntington's disease and other neurodegenerative disorders. So various, it's not only one disorder that has to be taken care of, but all these neurodegenerative disorders, wherein we have, very fortunate that we have representatives. Director NIMHANS is also part of the task force, representatives from all the departments like Women and Child, Disability Welfare Department, Health Department, Medical Education, and experts from NIMHANS, and then experts from Dementia India Alliance, HDSI. So it's a big task force. I'm sure after discussion in the task force chaired by Additional Chief Secretary and Development Commissioner, we will be able to come out with an action plan how to actually cater to persons suffering from all these disorders. So thank you very much. I think there are many experts who are going to talk about research and other things. Thanks a lot to the organizers for having given me an opportunity.
Thank you, Doctor. Now I would like to invite Professor Mathuranath, Head of Neurology, to address us.
At the outset, good morning to you all. At the outset, let me thank the HDSI and the Department of Psychiatry, particularly Dr. Meera and her team for taking up this initiative of organizing the second conference of the HDSI. I think the important thing is, I mean, as I can recollect, about 30 years back, when dementia was just about beginning, the understanding of dementia was just about beginning in India. I'm talking of 1995. The Alzheimer's and Related Disorders Society of India had organized a conference, had wanted to organize a similar conference on dementia, and we had organized it on their behalf in Trivandrum, and I don't know if Dr. Suvarna remembers, she was also there in that. So looking from that time to the current day, over 30 years, I think there's a lot of awareness that has come up amongst the public, general public, and people are able to appreciate what these conferences are about. And thanks to organizations like ARDSI and HDSI, which have been very instrumental in spreading this awareness amongst the general public and making them understand that this is not just only science, but there's also something that's got a lot to do with the society. So it's more, as much a social science as it is a pure science. I think that has been majorly contributing to this growing awareness, and I would like to thank organizations like the HDSI and the ARDSI and scientific individuals, clinicians particularly, like Dr. Biju Vishwanathan and Dr. Meera, who have been very active in kind of initiating and taking up these responsibilities of organizing the conferences in order so that there can be more expansion of knowledge and more interaction between the scientists and the social scientists, clinical scientists and the social scientists. Thank you very much. Wishing this conference the very best and a very fruitful interaction of all the scientists. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I would now like to invite Professor Suvarna Aladi to address the gathering.
Very good morning, and respected Director, Professor Pratima Murthy, Professor Vijay Raghavan, and friends and colleagues on the dais, and most importantly, people from the Huntington's Disease Society of India. It's a privilege to be here. Thank you for inviting me. So, I think I'd like to really congratulate HDSI for their incessant and efforts and commitment to bring us all together. We've heard from our seniors about the history of how, whether it is science or advocacy, has worked. We are actually at a time of collaboration, and I remember the conference, Madhu, in 1998 that you organized. We've all been in the field now, but I truly believe it's a time of collaboration now, and I know the youngsters know this, I know the younger colleagues know this, and I think our individual journeys are a struggle, especially in relation to Huntington's disease and disorders of complex inheritability with neurodegenerative disorders. We've heard from the plenary speaker in the morning how we often say we don't know how these proteins are propagating, but there are thousands of people working on this. We have clinicians who, as I speak now in the outpatient department, we see every day 4 or 5 families with complex inheritable disorders, and there are young clinicians and social workers and psychologists working so hard. We also have advocacy organizations that are really struggling to make an advancement in the way society perceives the disease. But I think we also have policymakers who are awakened to the process of needing to invest in neurodegenerative disorders, and it's been a struggle. But we need intense focus in our own fields. I think the students really need to work on neurobiology. We as clinicians really need to have an understanding of how families are manifesting the disease. And while the efforts are focused and intense in each of these fields, I think there has to be an equally intense effort to work with each other. And you really can't do both. And I think that is where an advocacy organization is making a huge difference. For Biju to believe that it's worth his time to spend here, for Kaushik to believe that it's important to have neurologists on stage, for policymakers to believe, like Rajini, that we really have to attend these meetings. I think this is a time of change, and I am very hopeful. And as a neurologist at NIMHANS, we've always worked together. And I think silos are breaking. We are working with basic scientists much more now. And one specific point is, you know about the Karnataka Brain Health Initiative. With the help of our director and the Department of Health and Family Welfare, we've developed these brain health clinics across all the states, all the districts of Karnataka. And I think we will commit to creating, I know Dr. Meera has been saying this, we will develop a Huntington's disease registry. We heard from Dr. Vijayaraghavan about acceleration, and disorders like this, which have few people, require clinical trials to be designed in a very different way, so that you can accelerate testing out of new drugs, accelerate testing out of non-pharmacological, even if it is social intervention, psychosocial intervention, rehabilitative measures. We need people, families to come into these clinical trials, and we need to have new ways of devising clinical trials, and that's happening across the world. So I think forming registries, nicely phenotyping them, providing resources to no research without care, so providing care. So all of that we commit to HDSI, and we're looking forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to invite Professor Pramod Pal.
Good morning, respected dignitaries on the dais and off the dais. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to come here. At the outset, I would like to congratulate Mr. Kaushik and Ms. Bhavana for bringing this up. And I really apologize to Mr. Kaushik also that often I am not able to adequately respond to your enthusiasm. Regarding, see, I am a clinician for the last 30 years seeing patients of Huntington disease. And I believe that there should be a joint platform of caregivers, patients, like any other disorders like Parkinson's disease, etc. But when it comes to the management of patients of Huntington disease, everything is to be tailor-made to a particular patient or a family. And not all Huntington disease is same, neither the requirements of all patients with Huntington disease is same. So this we have experienced from big caregiver societies or patient societies for Parkinson's disease, where even sometimes the patients of young onset Parkinson's disease do not wish to mix with the patients of elder onset Parkinson's disease, because all are different type of manifestations. It is not a one disease. Depending on the genetic dose, etc., you will have different type of manifestations. So there are a lot of myths and facts about every disease, and it is more for this type of neurodegenerative disorders. It cannot be given in one plate. It has to be tailor-made for every family. And also it has to be, as we, I started with a few colleagues 10 years back, we started the Movement Disorder Society of India with catering to different disorders and networking. And I had actually told Meera also, Kaushik also, that we will be very happy MDSI to be, collaborating with HDSI. The thing is that for the medical treatment, there is hardly much to treat as still now, except for the symptomatic management of patients of Huntington disease, only the chorea, the abnormal movements. But definitely from the day one, a neuropsychological or psychiatric assessment should be done, and different requirements are there for each patient. And so we have to treat judiciously. Not every patient of Huntington disease need treatment to suppress the abnormal movements. suppressing the abnormal movements, which is chorea in general, can cause more problems. Sometimes, different type of psychiatric disorders can happen from those drugs. Severe depression. The classical drug we use is, say, tetrabenazine, which can cause severe depression. Even I have seen patients trying to commit suicide. And suicide, homicide, etc. are very common in families of Huntington disease, and the general public should know about that. Okay. Also the lawmaking authorities, etc., that why these people behave like this. So every patient has a different needs, and also a caution for the general practitioners, because the genetic is a double-edged sword. It is so easily accessible now, but it's the indiscriminate use of genetics. 2 days back, I saw a whole family where an asymptomatic person also has been tested for genetics. It should not be done. So our doctors only do not follow the guidelines. I think that is the need, of the hour, that to educate the doctors who are caring for Huntington disease, that you need not at one go just ask for genetic testing for everyone of the family. So again, I congratulate this organization. I believe in translational research, and we do different type of research with collaboration with the basic scientists like Meera, Biju, etc., and also the other types, how to improve the gait, how to improve the cognition with different type of therapies, etc. And we'll be always, happy to help the society in our capacity as a clinician, and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We would now like to launch a book. We are proud to launch Whispers of Resilience, Living with Huntington's Disease in India. This book features While I'm Here, a personal journey by Sankesh Bhayani with juvenile Huntington's disease and anti-MOG. It also includes 2 patient stories shared by Professor Sanjeev Jain and a collection of resources for HD patients and caregivers. So Sankesh is here. We would like to invite him. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sankesh. Now I would like to invite Dr. Sanjeev Jain to address all of us. Yeah. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Pratima and Vijay Raghavan, for being here, and all my friends and colleagues. I'm here representing Dr. Jagdish as the head of Department of Psychiatry. I was associated with the Department of Psychiatry for many years. And in a little bit of historical thing, the Huntington disease was discovered, gene was discovered around the time I began my molecular genetics career in 1990 or something. It was exciting, but it's also frustrating that 40 years later, we are not able to do as much as we thought we would be able to do in 1990 with Huntington's disease. That's also because, as Vijay Raghavan has mentioned, we all live a short walk away from each other's disciplines. And in Bangalore, it's always a long drive and a short walk. So the collaborations become more and more difficult and become siloed. So efforts like these, where we combine the needs of the patients with the medical expertise of the clinicians and the laboratory insights from the basic scientists, is something that we have believed passionately in. I myself have collaborated with the Institute of Science. For the last 15 years, we have been collaborating intensively with the NCBS and with the JNC. So we hope that this kind of a neuroscience cluster in Bangalore, with the establishment of the large amount of biotech industry that we have here in biotech expertise, that we should really be able to, in Bangalore, be the spearhead of inventing or discovering new strategies for dealing with these neurodegenerative disorders. But unless the public at large forces the government to think about this, forces the powers that be to think about this in a much more intensive way, not only at the care delivery, because whatever we do, the efforts will be evident only 2 decades from now, a decade or two from now. Fast enough, but also not fast enough for those who already have the disease. For the here and now, we have to have better ways of handling the symptoms, whether it's by judicious clinical management or by intensive physiotherapy or needs, but at the same time plan for the future so that we can manage the disease to the best possible way that modern science and technology can give. And as Vijay pointed out, modern science and technology can really revolutionize these kinds of treatment. Now, brain disorders are difficult. All brain disorders are still the island of medical ignorance. We have no idea of the fundamental causes for Parkinson's, for Alzheimer's, for schizophrenia, for epilepsy, or for Huntington disease, the final causes. But we hope to get there, and as we improve in our understanding, we hope it will translate into the clinical scene, and we hope to reduce the stigma, the burden, and of everything related to Huntington disease with the help of all of you. Thank you, Mr. Kaushik, Bhavna, Meera, for actually doing all this hard work for getting this conference together. The Department of Psychiatry has been integrally involved because lots of patients with Huntington disease have psychiatric manifestations either before or after the onset of motor symptoms. And coordinated care from the entire services at NIMHANS, whether it's speech therapy or rehab, from neurology, from psychiatry, even from child psychiatry, because we do see a lot of juvenile Huntington disease, has been instrumental in improving our understanding of Huntington disease. So welcome all of you, and we look forward to intense collaborations, firstly between patients and then the clinicians and the scientists. Thank you very much, and look forward to your being here. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We would now like to offer tokens of appreciation for all our guests and dignitaries. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, thank you, everyone. We would proceed. We would now break for a short tea break.
Come